All right, guys, welcome to the High Octane Podcast. Bobby Wahl here, your host. A little bit of a rebrand from the In the Bushes podcast. We wanted to kind of go with the Octane theme here and continue to roll this because I think this is really important for, us, as a group here to continue to spread our knowledge to you guys, and hopefully if there's any questions, you guys can reach out to us. I want to start today by talking a little bit about something more on a personal note. We're in an NCAA dynasty, and the reason we're talking about this is college football is beginning. Year one, I was a national champion, naturally. Now we're actually in the college football playoff tonight. Me and Solter, I am Virginia Tech, and Solter is Stanford, and we're going to be playing in the semifinal, I believe.
Yep.
Brandon just lost to Chris in the quarterfinal, which is probably under review. We just watched the video. Maybe Mako can put that on the video version of this, but you guys can be the judges, if you will, to see if there was a script involved in that. All right, so did a little bit of advanced scouting, which I just told Solt. He's got a couple really good weapons on Stanford. I want to talk to you. What's your game plan for tonight? What are you expecting?
Expecting to spread the ball around a little bit.
Okay.
Expecting the quarterback to be a little more mobile than I'm used to seeing in the past.
That's true. Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say on that.
All right, Kyron Drones. Yes, he is an elite scrambler, and he's basically Cam Newton in this ball game. So a lot of QB power probably coming your way, some sneaks, or maybe not. We'll see. Brandon, you got anything to add on the Dynasty as a commissioner?
No, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Last night playing Patton was a good time. First time I've faced a human in the Dynasty. Otherwise, it's been computer opponents. So It's definitely a different gear.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris played well. Hats off. And we'll look forward to the rematch in the coming years. I'm sure I'll see him again in the CFP.
Yeah.
If not in the regular season. So.
Yeah, 42-35 ball game over there, and a drop that is under protest. I think that's not okay.
We'll pop it up there.
So EA Sports, if you're listening, let's fix the script. Let's give the people what they want, and that's a fair ball game. That's to you guys. All right.
The drop that you guys are going to see happened 2 times in a row.
On third and 13, was it? And then 4th and 13? That can't happen.
Little corner strike.
Yeah, corner routes always open, especially at a tight end or in the slot. Anyways, so it's been a lot of fun doing that. Today's episode, however, is about performance training in baseball. Really hot topic. A lot of differing opinions out there, and everybody wants to be correct. I think everybody tries to put their stamp on something, and they try to be different a lot of times, right? But what does the science say? What does the data say? Hopefully we're here to answer that today with 2 of the brightest minds, I think, in the game. Brandon Young, obviously, who everyone knows, and Matt Solter, who people might not know, actually, is one of our newest additions to the team. He's a director of performance. So Solt, if you want to go ahead and kind of give the people a little bit about your background and what you've seen in the past and what you've studied, the floor is yours, brother.
Yeah, so I was a health sciences major at Furman University.
Can I say something real quick about Furman?
Sorry.
Ole Miss, my alma mater.
Yep.
Furman just played in real college football, 76-0. The Rebs got the Paladins.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to bring that up. Jersey swap is going to be happening soon.
Probably should have done this podcast in that jersey. Just get it
yeah,
over with.
That would have been funny.
I will have no further comment on that game.
Sorry. Go ahead. My bad. Didn't mean to interrupt.
So I went to Furman, spent the last 10 years in professional baseball, working on getting my CSCS, just got my Precision Nutrition Level 1 certification, learning a lot from the master here, and excited to see what that's doing with the kids.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I think the nutrition side is so important for a lot of these kids. A lot of them don't understand what's actually needed. I can't tell you how many high school kids come in here and you go, hey, what'd you eat today? Oh, I had a Coke and 3 chocolate chip cookies, or I didn't have breakfast. I'm being serious. That happens a lot. And they just have no idea how to fuel themselves to come in here and train. And, if they're coming in to train 3 hours a day, there needs to be a much better diet plan in place. So the nutrition side of things is so important. And I'll say this about Matt, too. I've never been around somebody that works as hard as he does, and is as committed to the kids as he is, right? And I think that you can see that in the conversations he has with everybody, how the kids treat him, and just the culture that he's is building in the weight room on the performance side of things. And it's truly, for me to kind of step back and see has been a lot of fun, and it's an honor to have this guy here. So thank you, Matt. I want to say something about performance, and I think what I alluded to earlier, a lot of people tend to get stuck in boxes. And what I mean by that is they find one little cookie cutter way and say, okay, that's the way that we're going to train, and we're going to do that forever. That's not what we do here. I think for us, we're always looking for new ways to innovate, to find, hey, does this translate to this? Does this equal this? And a big part of that is Brandon. So Brandon, if you want to talk a little bit kind of about your background and how you've kind of come to a lot of these realizations and things that we'll discuss later on in the podcast,
We'll reference it, sure.
Yeah.
So I'm a why guy. I've always been that way, like why. And, going back to myself, the whole passion to start BYoung Physical Therapy and focus on UCL pathology, Tommy John cert, was because I went through it, right? And why did I go through it? Why did it happen? So answering that question was the first journey, right? And being able to solve that has been a lifetime career goal of mine, is to be able to reduce it. I mean, to solve it would be probably impossible because you got genetics. But at least, even if it's reduced by 5%, that's a major accomplishment. So
Sure.
I'm on that frequency. I am, that is my career goal. But along the way, I would look back at myself, and I threw the ball very, very hard, and I shouldn't have. My mechanics were trash. Maybe we'll put some videos of that
Sure.
on the podcast where I'm K'ing dudes up and shouldn't have been, because the mechanics are, like I said, they're just not good. I was strong, but the explanation of hitting some of the numbers I hit, it just doesn't make sense. So it creates a deep dive into what created my ability to throw hard. Also looking at guys that they're not weightlifters, but they're throwing 100 miles an hour. And they can sit up there. Why can these guys throw 100? They're not in the weight room all the time. So we don't want to get caught in a box where everyone has to do the same thing, like getting bigger and stronger, putting on weight. Well, this guy's 180 pounds and he's sitting 100.
So what do you think strength's role in the throw is? I think to both you guys, I think that's a good question.
So I think that certainly you've got to be strong, and that's defined in different ways. I think that there's a good argument that muscle mass would create longevity. I think it could certainly slow down injuries, so there's a great argument for that. Lean muscle mass. In terms of performance, like there's the rabbit hole. What kind of muscular performance creates these amazing feats on the mound, these crazy velocities? And I'm interested in how DeGrom throws the ball so hard, so effortlessly. He's just watched some of his rehab starts and just punching dudes out, hitting 100, and feeling good, looking good.
Yeah.
What does Jacob DeGrom do?
Great question.
And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves in the broad. I will explain kind of some theories I have on myself. I don't want to jump ahead unless you say, let's go ahead and touch on that and then maybe go deeper later. But
yeah, we can if you want. I think, what we were going to talk about today, and one thing that Brandon's brought up recently, and we've discussed in-house, is swimmers and their body types and how that actually can allow guys to throw hard. Not necessarily from the act of swimming, which I think in years past has always been something that's been discussed. Hey, swimmers, it's good for your shoulder, it's good for athletic performance, that's going to allow you to throw harder. However, I think it might be a little bit different than that, and the act of swimming and what it can do to the human anatomy, really.
Sure. So my it's not a theory because it's proven that swimming, especially during the developmental ages, will change structure. It will change rib cages. It will make you broader, which can create different scapulothoracic articulation. So instead of having maybe a narrow rib cage that the scapula can protract on, that's going to lead to an elbow leading and not a big lever arm, versus a rib cage that is flared out and the scapula comes out, protracts, but it's not going to come, it's not going to decrease that lever arm. It's going to increase the lever arm way out here. That broadness is going to create an exceptional lever arm and exceptional velocity. I really think that's why I threw so hard, is during the developmental years, every second I could be in a swimming pool, I was in a swimming pool. So when I was 10 years old, my dad put in a swimming pool, 28-foot round, and I played basketball in there. I played family volleyball. I swam underneath. Nothing structured like I'm swimming laps, but as a kid, just playing in the pool and swimming. But I mean, we're talking hours. If I wasn't landscaping and splitting wood, which for the longest time I thought splitting wood created some of the, of course the torso is an engine, that sagittal transverse plane boom, that power. But now that you're looking back, I'm like, well, no, this is multifactorial. Not only was it that, and it's good for core strength, and I know swimming's good for shoulder strength, and that's where people say swim. It's for shoulder strength. I think it's more in the developmental years what it's going to do for your posture and your physiology. And I haven't heard anyone talk about swimming doing this. So obviously this is cutting edge from the 8ctane side, from the BYoung side, that we're actually taking a look at this and saying that swimming during the developmental years is going to put you at a levered advantage when you get older because of what it does to your rib cage and your scapulothoracic advantage, scapulothoracic rhythm.
Yeah.
So, and how we implement this with our kids and how we prescribe it, we're going to have a good time with that and watching the results.
Yeah. And I, bringing that up and talking about DeGrom, I actually was able to play with him for a very short period of time when I was with the New York Mets in 2018, I guess it was. I remember the first time seeing him in person, and the only way to describe him was just different, right? I think his, extremely long arms, broad shoulders. He looked like a swimmer. The only way I can really compare it to is almost like a Michael Phelps body type.
Big O's fan, by the way. Michael Phelps, O's, let's go.
Baltimore, that's right. That's right. So I'm sure that there's some correlation there. Solt, what do you think? Obviously, I think the one thing doing that is getting into the pool. What else do you think we can do to increase that? Is there anything? Or is it just that
as far
one
as
act?
Increasing the lever there like that?
Yeah, people are going to hopefully people aren't going to go home and try to stretch themselves out listening to this. That's what I worry about. But is there anything that's safe you think that you'd recommend other than swimming?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, it's going to be on the swimming train, but what Brandon said, the repeated exposure.
Yeah.
You're not going to get those changes if you're doing it once or twice a week for a little bit of time. It needs to be constant, repetitive. Obviously, got to be able to manage the volume if you're going to. He was lucky to do it in a unscripted way that didn't lead to any issues, and he was able to throw hard because of it, presumably.
Any certain strokes you think that are better than others?
Probably a combination of everything. Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about shoulder health, I would say 2/3 backstroke to 1/3 breaststroke freestyle.
Yeah.
If you want a good formula for shoulder strength and balance, but mobility-wise, if you do both of those, you're going to have more of a balanced mobile shoulder versus maybe of an asymmetrical pattern. If you go in one direction, you don't want that. But another feather in the hat for the swimming exposure. I'm gonna shout out long time and a client from years past, Andrew Papp and his dad Adam Papp. Very smart folks. Adam was very analytical, and when I got Andrew, his dad Adam would tell me hey, this kid was throwing low 80s, and then didn't pick up a baseball all summer. What he did all summer was he surfed. And then in fall ball, he was low to mid 90s. Didn't touch a baseball all summer. Check that story out. Low 80s to low to mid 90s. Didn't touch a baseball, just surfed all summer. Oh, there's so many factors to look at, right? Vestibular. You know, the explosiveness to boost yourself up on a surfboard. There's a lot of good things going on. The swimming to get out there, that's going on. But, you know, Andrew's still growing. What about the developmental changes? I mean, this guy is already broad. You know, the breathing, and I'm sure that you're going to breathe harder, plus the water, plus the waves, plus the surfing. What kind of developmental changes are we going to get there? And obviously, to gain 10 miles an hour and not touch a baseball, that speaks for itself. So those stories are what has put me on a collision course with really what is creating velocity. And there's so much to it. Did you have to understand the anatomy and physiology to truly get into the roots? But we're going there, and we're going to lead the world in this direction. And I would love to see this, but a performance program that it's not that we don't touch weights, but we don't have to. We add it in a very strategic way, but some of the things we are doing are structured towards creating an athlete, especially if it's a pitcher that's never been seen before. The level of stability in the joint and all the regards for the vestibular system, the neural system, the developmental aspects of how we train these folks. And I mean, I guess the next topic can be if I'm 25 and I want these developmental changes, or I would love to get in a swimming pool all off season, is that going to happen for me? There's no research out there. I mean, in fact, it's very limited with the adolescent athlete, but there is enough proof out there to say that in developmental years there is changes in the cardiothoracic cavity.
Well, one thing I took away from that, I think you're going to piss a lot of summer ball coaches off because all their players can be in the pool now or surfing and not playing baseball. So hope that's not necessarily, I don't think that's what you're saying, but
No.
maybe we can find a way to do that as part of the training. I do want to go back to a little bit that we were talking about before, the strengths role in the throw. So I think there is a lot of differing opinions out there, and I think it's good to have differing opinions. I think people can learn from each other. You see a lot of Twitter arguments about this all the time. I feel like and Brandon, you kind of hit on it, but I wanted to ask Solt, like, as far as strengths role within the throw, what is kind of your philosophy on that?
It started from like the ground up, right? You got to be able to be stable in the ground to be able to transfer force into the ball up the chain, right? And then you got to have a strong enough shoulder to be able to withstand the deceleration of the throw. Got to have a strong mobile core to be able to get to some of those deeper positions that you're trying to get to. So I think there's definitely a base level of strength, and then once you get to that point, right? Like if you're a 140-pound kid who can't do a push-up, there's probably a need to get a little stronger.
Sure.
But again, like I think the fun part is finding that threshold of what's enough.
Yeah, like you always hear, like, point of diminishing returns. That's not necessarily a number that is set in stone for every kid at a certain age. Everyone's going to be very different in that, right? So, like, what, using that 140-pound kid, for example, what is the point of diminishing returns for strength at that level? I mean, is there something that you guys can say, boom, that's what it is, or is it kind of unique to everybody?
Well, I think I would love to answer that with a question. When I was 31, I could throw the ball 85 miles per hour. I would say that's, post Tommy John surgery, probably not too far off what I was at 18 years old. But I hadn't been lifting weights for 13 years. How am I still throwing that hard? With the strongest you've been in an off season, what was your velocity like? You hadn't touched a baseball really consistently in 2 years. You're putting up numbers in bullpens that you haven't put in bullpens. Who knows what you would throw up in a game with real competition. Would you be sitting 100? at this point in time. But
I don't know.
are you as strong as you were 2 years ago? You
No,
know,
God, no, not even close. Like
that if we don't look at that and question that, we're lost in a bubble of just get stronger. Well, if strength was the answer, I'm strong now as I was when I was 18, putting up, numbers, lifting the powers there, but I'd be lucky to top out at 65.
Yeah.
So
I think you got more in the tank than that. What'd you hit at Dave & Buster's?
70, but that's with a
little
1 ounce, a little 1 ounce ball.
That's funny.
Well, obviously the mobility is an issue, and there's other. We understand that whippiness is a huge key.
Sure.
And we lose that elasticity when we get older, so that's part of the answer. But I think we really have to question that. Okay, this guy's strong in the weight room, but he's not throwing hard.
Yeah.
You've been stronger in the weight room. You're throwing harder now than you did then. I think you could make a run back at big league baseball. I understand conditioning the body, but
Shoulder still hurts after that men's league
He could for sure.
What'd you say?
I said he could for sure.
Thanks, guys, but I don't know.
yeah. So there's my question: is what role does strength play? If this is you're not as strong, but you throw harder. I'm as strong now, and I throw much slower. At 31 versus 18, I had lost a lot of strength, but was throwing probably close to as hard. Junior year, I threw a lot harder, or I should say, end of sophomore years when I was putting up crazy numbers.
Velo or
Top
strength?
Velo, top,
yeah.
top 94.
Yeah.
So.
Anything to add to that?
I think a thing in the weight room I think a lot of people miss too is getting stronger is great, but a lot of times what that is too is teaching the body to recruit those higher threshold motor units better and more effectively and more quickly too. So I think to your point though, once you're strong enough, once you can tap into that, are you going to be better off just sprinting, rotating, learning to transfer energy more efficiently,
Jumping.
That's what I was going to talk about next is sprint work. But what I wanted to first hit on is the Proteus's role in that, and why I think that kind of separates us from a lot of different places is because we're actually getting hard data when it comes to what kind of athlete you are. And I always tell people now, like before, it was like, oh, this is an S&C, it's a strength and conditioning. I think the better term is athletic development, because there's so many different things that play a role into a player's development. It's not just strength and conditioning. Like I've learned so much from both you guys that there's a lot more nuance to it than just that. So, yeah. What do you, as far as Proteus goes, like how important is that for you to be able to kind of get a baseline?
Super important. I mean, it'll tell you, kind of give you a nice profile of a guy, right? It'll tell you whether a guy's super strong, but he's not elastic. And we'll get a lot of that from our force plates too. But to be able to run a quick test in 5-10 minutes and retest every month or every 2 months and get an idea of what a guy is, you see plenty of times where maybe a guy doesn't produce a lot of power, but he accelerates really, really well, and that'll account for sometimes higher than expected velo numbers. And on the flip side too, a guy's really strong, but he's also really, really slow.
Yeah.
So it kind of helps you find a low-hanging fruit to chase, and ultimately what's going to make a quicker fix for the kid, hopefully.
Sure. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I think on the rehab side too, it's a pretty cool tool.
Oh yeah.
As far as shoulder health goes, I think it's a big role in what we do from a prehab, so to speak, but also on the rehab side, if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, Proteus. Anytime you get objective measures,
Yeah.
Is good, and showing what percentile and where you stand. Is it, what kind of stability do you have versus mobility, and what the strength looks like across the spectrum of your mobility.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to the sprint work stuff, I hate sprinting. I think none of us really like it, but there's a lot of really good and cool benefits that come along with it. That's why we do the RASP protocol here. The Goldsteins did a pretty cool paper on that. There's some really cool data. So, if you want to kind of speak to the correlation that we found and kind of just talk about the importance of that sprint work that is part of the strength and conditioning.
Sure. Yeah, so the RAS, the running-based anaerobic sprint test, looking at total anaerobic capacity, was one of the big measures we found that correlated pretty highly with velocity, as well as max power output, which you'd expect. The more power you can produce, the harder you can throw, hopefully. But we've seen, especially in retest with guys, once they're 2-3 months into the program, the RAS score goes up, total anaerobic capacity goes up, velocity jumps right with it. So really cool, quick and easy test to do. You're going to be done in less than 2 minutes.
Hopefully not throwing up.
Yep. Recovery might take a little longer than that. But just an objective way to measure your anaerobic capacity and see those changes over time, and obviously, like any test, make sure that what we're implementing is actually working.
How long, Brandon, have you been putting that as part of your protocol, that sprint test? Because I remember a couple of years ago, you were like, hey, man, you need to go run that hill out there. I did it once. I said, nah, I'm never doing that again. I was getting old as far as baseball player age goes. But hey, how long have you been practicing that? How long have you been collecting data on your own from that?
18 years.
And you've seen
No, it's direct.
Pretty direct, right?
It's direct. So Kobe's told me to tell this story every chance I get. He came in, he had great mechanics, was working with Kurt Goodson at Backward K, one of the best instructors, just wanted a different take on, is there something more he could do? We did the 3D analysis. He looked extremely clean mechanically, but I asked him what he was doing in terms of, what's your strength and conditioning look like? What's your performance development look like outside of throwing? Squats, deadlifts, traditional stuff. And I said, stop doing that. Stop doing that now. And do this sprint protocol. And he did it for 4 weeks. And in the initial analysis, he was 84 to 86. After a month of doing sprinting, no lifting, he hit 93 and he sat 90. And the thing about Kobe is he did it 100% like I asked. A lot of times, because sprinting is so painful, people don't want to do it.
Sure.
And they don't do it as prescribed. So to be fair, it's difficult to say just how effective it is because it's so hard to get people to be compliant with what you want.
Not only that, but you have to give 100% to that sprint for you to feel like,
Correct.
For you to get out of it what you're putting in.
Your rate of perception, like, are you giving 100? I mean, that all matters, and there's a lot of room for error. Unless you have like a coach that's pushing you or some objective measure that says, yeah, you put in more this time than you did last time.
Sure. Yeah. And we can tell pretty easily if you're putting in 100% effort based off of the
aftermath.
The aftermath.
I've got a few kids, takes 45 minutes to an hour to recover from, and
it's a hard test.
It's always going to be who gives the most effort.
That's right.
Those are the ones who suffer the most.
And we don't want to sit here and say we're making our kids puke because they're working so hard. No, it's more so like, they haven't really ever felt what it feels like to give 100%, and it's sometimes
crazy,
good for them. Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but it gives us the best possible data that we can get on them as athletes, and then we can kind of take that and run with it. So it's huge what we do here. And I think to kind of summarize what we were just talking about a little bit, we do train here a little bit different, right? We do have different ideas when it comes to the thrower, as far as what those boxes may be out there. So I want you to kind of just give me a synopsis, if you will. Like, how would you describe how we train here at 8ctane?
Unique. While there is a place for some traditional strength and conditioning stuff, again, and where that line is kind of fluid, but then you start tapping into maybe more vestibular work or more neuromuscular work. We do some funky things on that end, and some things that we'll put out there eventually that, some of the throws that we do.
Oh, we're going to talk about today, I think.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
So some of the vestibular throws and things like that. I think because of Brandon's knowledge and ability to pass down that knowledge, that's what's dictated a lot of what we do, and it's a lot of outside the box stuff, but it's with a purpose and with a reason. It's not just, I think this is cool. It's no, there's an actual reason for this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's killing me to say something, right? No, so I mean, it's really unique and it's very different than other programs, but it's all science based.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the
That's the
anaerobic.
important part.
They're talking about the RAST. Anaerobic power, anaerobic threshold, anaerobic capacity. That's not new, but it's not. You know, it's not in the box that so many places are in, so they're not doing it.
It's not
Right?
groundbreaking science.
And
by
what does
any
it do
means.
for the athlete? Well, you're increasing your ability to produce power at the cellular level. That's huge, right? That's the organic chemistry that we need to be interested in. Vestibular, you know, an athlete's ability to be more like a cat, you know, to have unbelievable balance. Like, that's going to play a role in how you perform.
Be more stable and.
Well, yeah, and I want to talk about the vestibular stuff. Like, we have the throw that Solter's referencing is our tibby throws. Yeah, we'll play the video. We'll have our athletes spin around. Hopefully, they look somewhat athletic while doing it, and sometimes that takes coaching on our end. But, you know, and Brandon, I'll kind of lead you into that and kind of explain it, but I can't tell you how many times we've had a kid doing that drill, and then someone comes and goes, "What the hell is that? Why are they spinning in a circle?" And I give them my elementary version. Solter gives his very, very eloquent version, and I think you can take it a step further. So why would an athlete ever spin on the mound and then try to pick up a target and throw it?
So that's going to be a fun answer. We start talking about vestibular. You have to go into the neural components of how we function as humans. And so, you know, in the brain, you have the centers that control movement. And, you know, you have neural pathways. You have corticospinal, which is the majority of, you know, how we develop musculoskeletal strength. You have medial and lateral vestibulospinal. Those are going to be activated when you're doing balance type stuff. So the more these neural pathways you include in your movement, the stronger the signal from the brain. And so the more likely you are to have a stronger signal coming through the spinal cord, through the peripheral nerves, you're going to get more type 2B. I mean, it's been proven that vestibular recruitment does recruit type 2B fast oxidative glycolytic muscle fibers.
Yeah, and I think the best way that I describe it, or that Brandon's described it to me from an analogy perspective, is like that supercomputer operating on dial-up versus the one that has Google Fiber.
That's it. That's your fast type 2B fast oxidative glycolytic. Make sure I want to get that right. I don't want to stumble on that. So what Bobby's referencing is, you know, a strength program or program in general that focuses on building muscle strength is like building the fastest processor in the world, computer processor. That's your muscles. So if I develop these big muscles, well, I have this strong processing system, right? But what if the neural system, the nervous system, which is the internet signal, is dial-up speed? Or really slow for those that don't know what dial-up is.
Every young kid that I do a review with, I say, you probably don't even know what dial-up is, and they don't, and their parents laugh. So it's a perfect.
But what's this processing system if we don't have a good signal to it? It does you no good. But when you train the neural system, now you've got Google Fiber going to this processing system. Now we can take advantage of the muscular strength. So I would argue that if you don't understand vestibulospinal, rubrospinal, and, well, all of these different neural pathways, lateral ascending, you go ahead and name a few.
Reticular activating system.
There you go. So I've been passing some on to Salt, so he understands some of these neural pathways. They're crucial to understanding how we operate and how we function. And I would argue that the neural system is the most important. So if we're not training the neural system, then we're missing out. And to go back to, it's a long way of answering your question. If we're going to do these spins and throws, you know, we're going to have people walk and turn their head while they focus on it. You know, we are trying to incorporate the vestibular system. So that's a neural pathway that you're not going to get if you don't spin. So the more you include and the higher the signal, the more capable of recruiting these muscles, the stronger the internet connection becomes, and our athletes really begin to excel. I mean, everything that's being talked about here, when we have the Olympic-sized pool and when we have all the resources, like, it's crazy what we're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other ideas that we're not even jumping into that we want to do with our athletes. But I think unique is a great word, but unique in a way that I think we're going for the deeper stuff. We're going for the organic chemistry. To explain that further, there's a lot of kids that take organic chemistry. They memorize, they regurgitate, and when they're done with that class, whether they got an A, B, or C, they never want to use it again. But there's people that understand that organic chemistry, and they move on to discover what humans should eat. They move on to discover how to make a nuclear warhead. I'm sorry. But these people that apply, these brilliant people come up with things that most of the time are great for humanity, sometimes not. But in the case here, I'm taking organic chemistry and my training in exercise physiology and my studies of the neural system from physical therapy school, and I'm like, here's what we should do. And if you look at Andrew Patt, went off and surfed for a summer and gained this crazy amount of speed. You got to ask why. You have vestibular, the balance on the surfboard, getting up on the waves and the change in direction. You have all of those neural pathways working hard all summer long. And then on top of that, you probably do have some rib flaring.
Yeah. Train thy brain. Sure. Train thy brain, I guess.
Come here and train it. Yeah. It's different.
What do you got, Sol?
I think to go on top of that too, not just having the knowledge that Brandon does, but seeing it over 18 plus years.
Yeah.
And being able to pay attention to those changes and see what happens. And so I think it's not just a guessing game. It's following the physiology, but also a lot of experience, and it's not just a hypothesis. There's a lot of real world testing that's gone into this.
How do we take all of that, and how does the vestibular, how does the neural pathways, all these things that we're talking about, how does that affect, the programs that you put in place for these kids?
I mean, I think the RAS data being a jumping off point for that's a good start, because you can take a guy, can we say names on this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Athlete names?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like Fletch, right?
Yeah.
Guy who's 160 pounds, throws, I think he was up to 87 the other day?
Yeah. 86.8.
86.8, new PR for him from the left side. Ridiculous anaerobic capacity. Probably a top 5 score that we have here. So kind of giving you direction in a kid's program for what he's really good at. Mm-hmm. He's already got that capacity, so then you find ways to tweak it from there to figure out what he needs. And right now, chasing a little bit of body weight and hoping that'll, assuming the capacity maintains, is going to increase his ability to throw hard.
What I love working with both of you guys, and we'll focus on the strength and conditioning director here, director of performance.
The DOP.
Let me get that right. Director of performance. I sent you all these clips on these neural pathways and understanding them, and you send me a video of an athlete doing external rotation, but incorporating all these neural pathways like vestibulospinal, medial and lateral vestibulospinal, rubrospinal, corticospinal, reticular activating system, all of them. You said, hey, here you go. Here's an exercise, and we can cue that exercise that
the hollow bodies.
Hollow body. That all those neural pathways are being used, and we're getting a stronger rotator cuff. Like, that is where things need to go.
And it's cool too on those. Don't want to interrupt, but the athlete feels a lot stronger in those reps compared to one where they're just kind of doing a standing ER, right?
Which is crazy because you figure it'd be the opposite, but once you have that tension built, once you have those neural signals firing, they feel the difference.
Yeah.
And we have some really cool stuff that will be even better than surfing coming in the future that our athletes will be doing, and they're going to be built different.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. Always innovating here, and that's why I truly enjoy coming to work every day. Is there's always something new, I feel like. And, I'm going to use a Lane Kiffin quote here because right now he's high up on my hero list. At Ole Miss, they don't stay within the box. They don't think outside the box. They create a new box, right? And I've really taken that to what we do here because it's like, okay, so many people are claiming they think outside the box, but why not create a new box? Why not be a little bit different? Why not find other ways to try to get these guys better and be the best at what we do? And to me, that's where I get enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's nice that there's a lack of ego all around in that regard. We're happy to learn, happy to be wrong, and happy to to get better. And on the vestibular side, it's cool to see too. You see guys in the NFL and guys in the NBA, incorporating some of this into their training. So it's especially at that level, they're not going to.
Oh, the Kevin Durant
little spin around free throw or
that's right. We
top
saw
of the
that,
key
right?
shot.
Yeah.
Well, everything I've passed your way, you've put it in motion. It hasn't just been words where, oh, that's a great idea, Brandon. Like, I see the pronation lift, which, it comes from us wanting to give better arm care and looking at what arm wrestlers do. Well, if you're going to arm wrestle, obviously, you're going to be very strong and you got to be very stable to do it. So what do these guys do? Looking at their training and then incorporating it for our pitchers and watching them benefit from it.
Yeah.
And these supination and pronation lifts are going to be big. No, I don't see anyone else doing that.
Yeah.
You see your traditional dowel rod stuff, but that's a subjective way to measure. You can't, unless you've got
These
some
lifts
sort
are
of
different.
dynamometer on there. You can't control how much force exactly is going on into the forearm there.
Not seeing a lot of people actually having their athletes do arm wrestling competitions either. Obviously, in a very controlled setting where no one's trying to win, they're just trying to give themselves enough intent and pressure. But it adds an element of competition too, which I think we also are big on, is like finding ways for these kids to compete every day, because that in itself is a performance enhancer to me, right? And that's going to give you
100%.
the best you got. So.
Yeah.
And the hope is with the arm wrestling, we're developing a base of stability and strength that it's not seen anywhere else. On top of that, understanding that the fast twitch muscle fibers around the elbow need to be plyometrically quick to stabilize. So we embrace the speed bag for that, and we have a study going on with rapid pronation supination to see if there's a correlation with injury. So we're going to continue to push forward on not only innovating things for our own athletes, but also contributing to the field of study for their overall betterment of all athletes.
Sure. I love it. Well, I think we have our guys start to come in to pop in the train here, all the high school kids. So is there any closing thoughts? So I'll start with you. You got anything?
Just kind of tailing off what we just said too. I love all this forearm work. I love all this different type of arm care we're doing, because arm care doesn't just start and stop at the shoulder. It goes all the way down, all the way into the fingertips even. So doing some of the stuff with the speed bag that we're doing, the pronation, supination lifts, should give our athletes a heck of an advantage when it comes to being a better thrower.
Absolutely.
I have something in closing statements to say, like what I've heard recently from all the athletes is not only do they love what is happening here on the developmental side and what you guys are doing on the unique aspect, but they love you guys. Like they love coming in here and working with you guys because you relate to them and you know how to motivate them and get the most out of them, and it makes you guys different.
Well,
so
thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I just to kind of add to that, it's not anything that we're doing other than being ourselves and truly loving what we're doing every single day. It's hard to find a place to work and a job to have that we get to be around, great athletes all day long and try to get them better. And it for me, it's a lot of fun. It keeps me going, allows me to compete, to try to get everybody in here as good as they possibly can, to throw as hard as they possibly can, to command the ball as well as they can. Maybe we learn a new pitch. Like, there's just so many elements to player development, and to me, it's a whole lot of fun, and we got a really good team here, so really fortunate. Guys, that was High Octane's first episode. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully be doing more of these relatively soon. All right, thank you.